like to say this though, in terms of moving forward. I want to close up the Blackbirds thing and just talk a little bit about myself and my daughter and some of the other things I'm doing just quickly as a footnote, because see, the Blackbird story is this. It's really about from classroom to courtroom and beyond. That's the Blackbird story. When it's said and done, and hopefully I will write that story. I've already started, but it's really about some students being in the classroom, studying with a jazz icon, a professor, an academic hierarchy with Donald Byrd to success. How about from classroom to success, to the courtroom and beyond? Now, the beyond is just as important as everything else. The beyond for me is that for the last 30 years, I've been able to have a solo career. I've been able to do a lot of things musically that I only dreamed of and that I couldn't have dreamed of. You know, like, you know, first of all, having a record career and, you know, having albums out and having success with that.
12 albums by my count.
Yes, 12 albums out there and continuing. And for the last, since 2008, I have my own label now. And so what does that mean? That means I just put up the money for everything now. Instead of going knocking on doors and asking somebody, can I make a record? I put my budgets together in monies and I fund them myself. I fund not only making the record, but, you know, getting the publicist, getting the social media, all the aspects of what a record company does. We have to do that today. That's the time we live in. And, you know, hey, I'm a big boy now, right? I'm supposed to do that stuff. So, so I'm excited that I get to do that based on what I learned from the Blackbirds and all that. That's always would be my foundation and stuff. But, you know, so in addition to my records, my latest record is called, you know, my most recent one is called New American Suite. And this is probably one of my best records, I believe, because it was a departure from everything. Well, put it this way. It was a departure from my earlier records, commercial records I may have done, or the smooth jazz records, or however you want to call them, that was embraced by that. I went back to my basics. It's an acoustic piano record. I'm playing nothing but piano. There's no synthesizers, and there's a bass player and drummer. And it sounds and feels fantastic. I had a great group of guys playing with me on there. Michael Bradford helped me co-produce, co-write the record. Chris Coleman on drums. I'm excited about that. I'm doing theatrical things, plays. I'm doing arrangements. I'm writing new plays. I just finished arranging a jazz quintet version for Porgy and Bess that ran up in Santa Barbara. Porgy and Bess, as we all know, is the iconic George the Ira Gershwin opera, right?
Summertime's from that, right?
Summertime is from that. I Got Plenty of Nothing. A Boat Leaves from New York. A lot of hit jazz standard songs, right? Mm-hmm. But what I'm proud of with that achievement is that I took the great master's work and blended it in and reorchestrated it for a jazz quintet. And the setting was set in the 1960s, so that was perfect for me. I knew how to bring in the jazz because they wanted to set it in the civil rights movement or the civil rights period. So that told me what the music was going to be. So I'm proud of that achievement. I'm working on a new play that I'm composer for called Princess of 57th Street. And I'm creating original music from scratch as a composer, as a songwriter. I'm excited with that. My daughter, Dominique Toney, I produced her debut record a few years ago, and we're still having success with that. What's that now? Can you see it?
A little higher.
A little higher.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
It's called
Nice.
A Love Like Ours. And, you know, what a joy to be able to work and collaborate with your daughter. I mean, 20 years ago, she'd be in this studio when I first moved in this house, listening to my songs and playing piano lessons. And who knew that, you know, she'd go to college, to NYU, and come back and say, hey, Daddy, I got some songs I want you to listen to. So, we listened to them, and I was like, that's pretty good. Let's work on that. So over a period of about 3 or 4 years, we put her album together when she came back from school. And, you know, it's a blessing. You know, we're having success with this. I've released this on my Kevin Toney, K-Tone Enterprises labels. her title cut right now with 3 singles into it, and on jazz radio, on contemporary jazz radio, she's still in the top 20, 18 weeks out. So we're having success with that. We do shows together. I perform with her live. Kevin Toney, Dominique Toney, and so God's blessing us with doing that work. I want to say that something else of interest to you, 2 things. One, when Donald Byrd passed away, may he rest in peace too, back in
2013, I believe.
Correct.
Yeah.
The next year, I put together a tribute for him. I called it the Donald Byrd Acoustic Electric Sessions. And so what I wanted to do, I got the idea, was to do some concert performances that would honor him and be a tribute to not only his popular stuff he did in the 70s, but for the stuff he did, the acoustic stuff. So I was able to put together a couple of concerts where I had Nicholas Payton, the great jazz trumpet player from New Orleans, play. Gary Bartz, great jazz saxophonist from back east. He was on some of the earlier Donald Byrd records. I had Dominique do the lead singing, and my trio, and we added a guitar player. The first half of the show was acoustic set. We did things like Crystal Redentor, just Donald Byrd things that were of acoustic nature, fancy free. Second half, we did the electric stuff, Flight Time, Places and Spaces.
Sounds great.
Yeah, so on and so forth. And then, of course, I had that, we add some Blackbird songs on there. So I have that I do from time to time. People ask me to do that. That's something in addition from the Blackbirds. And then the other thing that I've done that I'm most proud of, Scott, you find out hopefully later in your life that your gifts are not your purpose. Let me repeat that. Your gifts are not your purpose. And I found out probably the hard way, and in the most unusual way. I found out my gifts were my purpose because 13 years ago, I was facing divorce like this because of my infidelities, cheating on my wife. By God's standard and man's standard, my wife had every reason to kick me out, man. She had every reason, but that didn't happen. So, and I would learn out years later why that didn't happen. But my miracle and testimony and my changing point in real life was this, that God brought me out of infidelity, cheating on my wife 25 years into our marriage. Now, 25 years is a long time. You figure you're pretty set. So whatever you're doing, you're doing. But I was brought out of it over a period of time. I was restored as a broken man because I was broken. I was lost, thinking that the grass was greener on the other side and being foolish, just all that stuff that I had brought to believe that about women and treating a woman was totally a misconception.
What year are we talking?
Well, we're talking about 2004. Okay, that I almost lost everything is what I'm telling you. But look, I was restored as a broken man. My marriage was restored, and so now me and my wife have been married for 38 years this year. Wow. That's a praise God moment. Because I know God did it. I didn't do it. I had to pay attention because if it was up to me, I certainly wouldn't be talking to you about this and I wouldn't have my wife. But here's the blessing, and here's the real story. The real story is that God would use me. The reason why that I didn't lose my wife because God would be able to use my story to show that God can heal what's broken. And in this case, a broken marriage, a broken relationship. So whatever your brokenness is, I've come to find out that what my real purpose is, besides making music, that's a gift. Your gifts take you in front of people. My real purpose is really to help people grow and stay together through faithfulness in relationships. And so with that note, I've also been given 2 books to write. My first book I wrote was how I really got all this together. And also and the first book was called The Virtuous Man, Breaking the Men's Code. Any musician out there should get this book because some of you is in here. I talk about how I got these men's codes. And by the way, the men's codes are any reason or rationale a man uses to have sexual and emotional relationships outside of his wife or committed partner. And there are many of them. one of the men's code that got me busted, or that got me busted and got me, it was a misconception that if I had an affair with a woman outside of the city I lived in, I can get away with it. But my wife was a great detective. She had GPS on the car. She had all the phone records, all the stuff I thought that I should have covered. I wasn't a good cheater. At any rate, she had all that covered. And, you know, long story short is I'm glad I got discovered, because I found out through that course and going through that my wife was the best thing that God had given me 25 years. I was just not in a space to recognize that and recognize her. So I'm glad I've gotten a second chance with my wife and family to do something greater. So really the book tells, one, how I got these misconceptions that it was okay to disrespect and cheat on your wife. So I tell how I got them from my father. I mentioned what that story was, to how I gained them as a young musician coming up in Detroit, hanging out with the big boys, playing with everybody and seeing these guys cheat on their wives and doing this, that, and the other. So, hey, of course, you know, you have to be careful about, well, you have to have a filter. And some of us, I didn't have a filter. You have to know how to filter out some things you don't need to know about in life. And I didn't have a good filter. It would come later. And so anyway, I tell the story of how I gained those things. And I even tell the story of how I got my graduate degree in the men's code from Donald Byrd, watching how he operated. With all due respects to him, it's true. And I say that because I was so enamored with being in his presence that I watched everything he did. So even the things he didn't tell you to do, you watch. So you saw how he operated with women, or how he did this, that, and the other. And I talk about it in the book, with all due respect. I talk, you know, so I got my finishing touches. You know, with all that success came baggage that I would bring into my marriage. And some of the baggage I couldn't let go of, Scott. And again, I almost lost everything. But my story is this: if I can do it, and if I can change my behavior over time, and look, believe me, my recovery period was like 5-6 years. So it didn't happen overnight. And I don't want to really get into all the details now, because I encourage people, you can go to my website, www.kevintoney.com, and read the story. I've got the books up there. I've got that information. But, you know, again, the book tells, The Virtuous Man Breaking the Men's Code tells how I got these misconceptions and how I got it together, the practical and physical steps. Most importantly now is my new book out. I'm just releasing it. It's called Super Glue Your Love Relationship. Super glue. You know what super glue is, right?
Of course.
Super glue your love relationships, ingredients to grow and bond it. See the super glue on there?
Yeah.
So the deal with this book, and the reason why this is important, is that it's a book to it tells where I'm at 13 years later. How I'm 13 years infidelity free. How about that? Some people say they're 1 year drug free. Well, guess what? Kevin Toney is 13 years infidelity free. And that's a big deal, because, see, before I talk about this book, greater than music, and some people are musicians, particularly for that, well, not only from that area, but musicians and entertainers, we're some selfish people out there. And we don't realize what we do when we don't respect our wives in marriages. Not only do we destroy our family and our children, but we destroy our wives, and we keep perpetuating the same mistruths and misconceptions that men are men and men are supposed to do that. I tell you right now, that is not the case. It's about behavior and rethinking things and doing what God calls us to do. Love our wives, respect them, have reverence for them. So this book, the new book, tells really how my wife and I have rebounded, and superglued our relationship to heights unbeknown before, even when we were doing good. And so I also interview people who have had long relationships in life, and I journal how they've superglued their relationship. So now both of my books really become tools for relationships, for behavior, for either changing your behavior, like the first book, Virtuous Man Breaking the Men's Code. That's for men. That's for men who either are where I was or about to be there, or if you're beginning to start your relationship, get this book so you won't even ever get there, because far greater than your success will be the success that you're going to have with your family and your legacy with your children.
You should market
far
that
greater than music.
Market that to the NBA is one place.
And you know what? We're going to do that. I'm going to, you know what? Because see, these subjects are really bigger than even, they're for entertainers, they're for men, period. They're for couples. My second book is really for couples, though. And so that's a good thing. And so getting back to, again, for musicians out there, look, God has blessed me with so much success with the Blackbirds and in my solo career and the things I'm doing, music, that he's even blessed me even more by finding a purpose greater than music and things. Now, see, music is great. I can make people feel good. But if I can help save somebody's relationship or marriage or how somebody thinks about that, how much is that worth? And I'll tell you this, and I'll leave you with this thought unless you have something else. How about this? Out of everything we've talked about, being with the Blackbirds and all those hit records, Scott, guess what that's done for me? Besides giving me a legacy in music and all that, which is great, and I appreciate that, and I rever that, and I always want to tell my story because I was there. My story, not his story or somebody else's story. Is that it's really given me, it's the setup for something greater for me, what I'm doing as a speaker and as a writer, to really help grow and keep families together. I mean, I would have never had any thought in my wildest imagination while I was making those records that because of my success with the Blackbirds, guess what? People pay attention. So if I tell them, oh, I'm Kevin Toney with the Blackbirds, and I hum, I'm walking in rhythm, and play that, well, what else you got? Well, by the way, I'm also an author, and I want to talk to you about faithfulness in relationship and the importance of it, and how are you doing in that area? Because everybody struggles, and we know there are millions of men, millions of couples who break up or whose marriages are destroyed. And see, I'm epidemic. It's epidemic. So I'm so passionate about this, man. I'm so passionate about it because, see, I could have been another statistic. I could have been another number. Yeah, Kevin Toney did this, or he messed up and he cheated and he ain't with his wife. And my kids could say, oh, look at my father. He was just like the rest of them. But, man, I tell you what, that was the cycle. It's stopping the cycle. And not only that, I am so elated that that happened for me, that I've gotten to that now I want to help others. I want to help others who might be struggling with that or before you even get there. So that's what my purpose is. And I say hallelujah to that, okay? And I'm still making the greatest music I can make, better than what I've made ever before, because now that I found my purpose and know my groove, now God is supersizing my music blessings far more than what I could have ever conceived, writing symphonies. I'm doing all kinds of music across all kinds of lines. I'm no longer, you know, I never wanted to be considered one thing, just the Blackbirds, or just that and the other. And for many years, I got to tell you this, and I'll leave you with this, it's interesting. For many years into my solo career, I really wanted to not let people know I was a Blackbird. I kind of wanted to shoe that under, until I had one of my good friends tell me over and over, and I put him on a concert with me, Ray Parker Jr. We were doing a concert, and I had Ray as one of my special guests. I had a package deal. I had another person on the show, and I had Ray Parker. And I remember after the concert, or during the concert, and I introduced Ray Parker with Ghostbusters. Then Ray came back and said, hey, wait a minute, everybody. I know you know Kevin Toney for his solo stuff, but do you have any idea who he is, what he's done? How many of you know Rock Creek Park, the Blackbirds? And he started naming two. That's him. He's the original guy. So he said, Kevin, play a little bit of that. And so for years, I kind of shunned that, and it's interesting, but you know what? I have learned to have great joy for embracing my history, playing those songs. Those songs are just as much as part of my legacy as everything I've done. And well, I'm grateful.
Ray Parker, too, it's kind of ironic because most people are not aware that the Ghostbusters guy did all that other stuff that he did.
Absolutely. In fact, you know what? I want to connect you with him. He would be a great story for you because, Ray Parker, before Ray Parker was Ray Parker and radio, and he had all those hits in the late 70s, early 80s. Ray Parker used to be the funkiest, and he still is, but he used to record. He was one of the most recorded guitar players in R&B history of the 70s.
No, I know the stuff he did with Herbie, and he did Rufus.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd love to have him on. Hook it up.
I will hook you up because he should be part of what you talk here. And so, hey, that's my story, man.
Hey, first off, I just want to say, you know, all power to you. That's fantastic. I mean, it's great to hear the way you've gone through this journey and where you are now. So congratulations for that.
Thank you.
Definitely. So I did want to ask, you know, in a few years ago, a Blackbirds record surfaced, and I guess there was a reunion of sorts, but you were not involved in that?
Yes, that's correct. It appeared as called Gotta Fly, something like that. Keith had put that out with the guys in D.C. You know, by the way, the Blackbirds, so everybody knows the score. I mean, it's all good. You know, I think we love each other. I love them. And we're good. You know, and there was a time before that record came out that we would do some reunion gigs together, right? I mean, you know, come 2008, 2007, I was on the stage with them for several things. And then they put their record out, and I remember I wasn't really asked to be on it, maybe just one or two things. And so we just couldn't work it out. You know, we just couldn't come together on it. And so I wished them well, but it just, it wasn't, we couldn't get the business right. So let's just leave it at that. And they put the record out. And that was kind of the resurgence of the Blackbirds on record again. What was that, 2012 or 13?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and so I don't know when they're going to do it again. But look, the Blackbirds, Keith, Joan Orville live in D.C., bless their hearts, and they keep the Blackbirds going. I mean, they go over to Europe and do gigs. You know, they've got the original Blackbirds. I mean, occasionally, since I've been out in California for the last 4 years, I've have occasionally put together a West Coast Blackbirds. I would get one or two of the original guys, fly them out here. I wouldn't have all the originals, but I would get one or two of them. And we come out and do some Blackbird gigs here. We've done the Long Beach Jazz Festival here, I guess the West Coast version. We've done Yoshi's. We've done several, a couple of gigs out here. But, you know, it was never really, again, I do those out of it being available. If someone calls me, if I'm available, I do it. But it's never, since I left them, it's never been my calling to keep the light burning for that. But but the door is open. Absolutely,
could happen.
Absolutely, the right door. Yeah, there's no animosity there, and the right stuff comes up. I'm in contact for them. In fact, I've gotten things that that's come across my table that I've asked if they're available, and so we're talking. So that's the good thing, right? We're talking, and we'll see what the good Lord has in store for us. I think that could be great. An opportunity where we can do a recording in the studio and kind of, a last hurrah for it. So we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, I've always been one to want to move forward and move my pendulum forward. And I'm okay with seasons. I understand life has seasons. Some are shorter than the others. And, my season is usually about 7 years for something outside of my wife and family, right? And so, yeah, that's it came out, and go to DC. You can probably see them playing in some clubs there. Yeah.
Outstanding. So one more time before I close things out, why don't you tell people again how they can keep up with all the things that you're doing?
Yes. So you can reach out to me. I'm on Facebook under Kevin Toney. I've got a couple of Facebook pages, Kevin Toney Musician. You can keep up with me on my website, which really has everything I do, from my solo records to my books that I talk about, to my speaking engagements. I've got speaking videos. I've got live music. You can see the music I've got out on my label with my latest thing, with the recording that I told you about, Dominique's, my daughter Dominique Toney, www.kevintoney.com. That's KEVIN. Toney. Go to my website. It's pretty much up to date. I'm on Twitter. I'm on all the social media things, and I hope to see you in a city somewhere near you soon. And don't forget to check out my latest thing, my new book, Super Glue Your Love Relationship. Everybody needs some super glue. How about you?
No doubt, no doubt. Well, Kevin, it's been a blast. You know, as a fan from back in the day, it's been just a dream come true to be able to, you know, meet you and just hear all those fantastic stories and just know that you're still doing what you're doing today. So it's definitely been an experience I'll treasure. So thank you. So with that, it's time to wrap up this edition of Truth and Rhythm. A huge thanks again to Mr. Kevin Toney, a funk and jazz keyboard giant with the Blackbirds and as a solo artist and all the other talents and interests that you've heard about. Thank you so much again to the viewers. Be sure to look out for other editions of Truth and Rhythm at funkandstuff.net and on YouTube, and also podcasts on iTunes and other providers. If you're an artist or a music industry figure interested in being on the show, like maybe Ray Parker Jr., email me at scottg@funkandstuff.net. Or if you're a fan and you want to see a particular artist on the show, do the same, and we'll try to make it happen. So until next time, on behalf of Kevin Toney.
All right, thank you. Thank you. I look forward to seeing the show and letting people know about what you're doing. You're doing a wonderful thing, Scott.
I appreciate it. Thank you. So this is Scott Dr. JX Goldfine, as always, saying keep on vibing to the rhythm of the one.